now. We have a local brother, Brother Justin Moody, and his theme is responsibilities and rewards of parenthood. So just ask Brother Moody.
All of us here today are one's children. In fact, many of us here today have had children of our own. And yet a few more of us, our children, have even had children. But during that time, undoubtedly, most of us have heard the term the miracle of life, or the miracle of birth. But what do we really know about this miracle of life? Well, King David shared his thoughts with us in the Bible at Psalms 139, verses 13 through 17. And if you'd like to turn there with me, that's Psalms 139, 13 through 17. And here it states, "For you produced my kidneys. You kept me screened off in my mother's womb. I praise you, because in an awe-inspiring way I am wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know this very well. My bones were not hidden from you when I was made in secret, when I was woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes even saw me as an embryo. All its parts were written in your book, regarding the days when they were formed, before any of them existed. So to me, how precious your thoughts are." See, David, even in his limited medical understanding that they would have had at the time, was able to discern how miraculous birth really is. But what about today? What do we know about birth? Well, it's interesting to note that from the time of conception to just 5 weeks later, which is roughly the amount of time that a woman could go to the supermarket and see if her hormones have changed and take a home pregnancy test, that child has already started to form a circulatory system, and its heart may have even started to beat. And its size is that of a sesame seed. And if I were to hold a sesame seed up here, I doubt anybody in the audience could even see that. And then when we move forward to 10 weeks, the nose, mouth, ears have all started to take shape. The brain and nerve cells have started to develop. The baby's limbs can start to move around and has grown in size from a sesame seed to that of a kumquat, or about roughly the size of a large grape. At 15 weeks, fingerprints, fine details like that have started to develop. Facial muscles and the kidneys have started to work. The child can sense light. In fact, if you were to take a flashlight and move it around on a mother's stomach, the baby inside would move if you had a camera to see that, to move away from the light. Isn't that interesting? And in fact, at this point in time, if you use an ultrasound, you may be able to tell your child's gender. And it's grown in size to that of an apple. At 20 weeks, its soft cartilage skeleton has started to harden and form into bone. You may even be able to feel the baby's limbs start to move in the womb. Its senses of sight, touch, hear, and sound have all started to develop, and it may even be able to hear your voice. Also, it has started to swallow. Its digestive system has started to produce meconium, which is that really dark, sticky first food that your baby has. And I know if you're like me and you had to change that first diaper, you're hoping, oh man, I hope I don't have to ever do another one of these. But, in my case, I had at least 2 more experiences. But at this time, it's a little bigger than an heirloom tomato, or like what a big beefsteak tomato would look like. Moving on to 25 weeks, the baby's movements have changed from mere just flutters to full-on kicks, and the lips and eyebrows are much more distinct, and even hair has started to come in with its own color and texture, and it's grown to about the size of a rutabaga. At 30 weeks, your child is starting to inhale and exhale amniotic fluid, which is essential for its lung development. It can blink, eyelashes have grown in, and its head is growing for its ever-expanding and developing brain. And it has grown in size to that of a butternut squash. And at 39 weeks, which is generally considered full term, your baby's physical development is complete. However, more than likely it will continue to grow for 1 or 2 more weeks, where it will start to take in more subcutaneous fat, which will help it to maintain its body temperature outside of the womb. So isn't that remarkable how quickly all of that changed? From the moment of conception where we couldn't even see it, to a sesame seed all the way to the size of a miniature or a small watermelon, all in the time of 39 or 40 weeks. Truly a miracle. But as parents, what do we do during this time when our children are starting to have all these miraculous changes inside the mother's womb? Well, a mother would start to make smarter eating choices, leafy vegetables, nutrient-rich foods, maybe have to supplement with prenatal vitamins. They would want to avoid things like drinking, smoking, drug use, even heavy lifting or extraneous exercise. Instead, a pregnant woman, we wouldn't want her moving furniture all around in the living room. That's where the husband comes into play. But why do we do these things? Because, of course, we want to take care of our baby. Isn't that obvious? Another thing that we might do is start what people call nesting, where we start getting clothes and baby wipes and diapers and all these things. And our friends may even throw a baby shower for us. I remember with one of the boys, we had a sister that got us some size 2 and 3 diapers. And she said, well, those, prenatal diapers or those newborn diapers, they're not going to last any time at all. And she was right. All 3 of my boys were out of those, I think, by the time we got out of the hospital. So I certainly appreciated those 2s and 3s that she was able to give us. But why are these things so important to us? Well, we understand that it's a life, but it's also a gift from Jehovah to us. And we can read about that at Psalms 127 and verse 3. And let's look at that. That's Psalms 127 and verse 3. And here it says, look, sons are an inheritance from Jehovah. The fruit of the womb is a reward. So like any reward that we receive from our Heavenly Father, don't we want to nurture it, hold it, cultivate it? It truly is one of the most precious things that a parent can ever have. But what do we do once our child is home with us? What role do we take on? Well, it's important for both parents, the mother and the father, to analyze their future respective roles that they'll have to have. They're going to have to change from a me attitude they had when they were single to a we attitude when they got married to an us attitude whenever you gain that extra child. And it's interesting to note that mothers actually serve a very, very huge role, especially in early child development. Certainly, mothers are not just mere child bearers, but no, mothers care for, hold, cherish their children. They allow their child to absorb their love and affection. In fact, this is such the case that a former U.S. president noted, it is the tasks connected with the home that are the fundamental tasks of humanity. If a mother fails to do her duty, there will be no next generation, or a generation that would be worse than none at all. Isn't that interesting? How critical a mother's role is in the development of a child. Another sociologist noted that mothers are the primary protector for each child's health, education, intellect, personality, character, and emotional stability. That's such the case that many of us have probably heard the term somebody's mother tongue, which is usually referred to as the first language that we've learned or spoken language. Well, that actually is derived from the fact that usually the first words a child learns are from their mother, from that constant interaction of talking with their child. So oftentimes that is the language that a child will stick to for the rest of their life. How interesting that is. But a mother will continue to do these things well past the 3-year mark where it's so critical for a mother to be involved. In fact, they're going to continue to care for and love their children for the rest of their lives. I know with my own mother that I can go to her and I can talk to her about anything. She's one of my very best friends. And she's always been able to set aside the time to care for me. Now, what about the father? Well, fathers, despite what many may think, need to be involved from the very beginning. They take on a fuller role as time progresses, but even from the very beginning, a father would want to interact with his child, play with them, love them, and, it's interesting to note that your constant interaction and holding your baby actually helps to round out that personality. And it's not enough for us to say, oh yeah, that's my son, go team dad. No, we just can't talk the talk. We also have to walk the walk. And this includes many things. It also includes taking on a role of helping the mother, especially in early life. That means that a father needs to be involved in changing diapers, helping the mother if she's feeling sick, getting up, taking care of the baby, taking on a lot of actions to be able to assist the mother and the child, because the overall benefit is going to be for your child. Granted, as the child ages and matures, the father takes on a much more prominent role in its education. In fact, the father is primarily responsible for instructing, reproving, correcting, and doing all these things with love and kindness. We also have to be able to be firm, but not overly stern, and we have to maintain our approachability. It's also important to notice that mothers and fathers, even though their roles may differ, that we need to be able to harmonize those roles for the benefit of our children. In fact, by doing so, we make it much easier for us to have our children honor us as parents. We can do this through several ways, and especially in our dealings with one another, with our prospective mates. Because, for instance, if we have a child and its mother has told it to do something, as a father, we wouldn't want to say, oh, don't worry about that. I need you to do this instead. Even if it is something that needs to be done, we'd want to talk to our wives and be like, hey, I really need Bryson to do this for me. And then Bryson, even though he's watching, will understand, hey, what mom wanted me to do was really important, but dad might need me to do something else for right now. And that's perfectly acceptable, because if we undermine our fellow worker in helping raise our child, our children may stop to respect them as a parent. And certainly we wouldn't want that. But what happens if we don't have a partner? What happens if we don't have a helper to assist us and we're a single parent? Well, it's actually very sad to note that one person was quoted as saying, if the two-parent household were an animal, it would be on the endangered species list. In fact, 1 in 4 children live in a one-parent home at one point in their life. And in the U.S. alone, 13 million parents are single parents, the far and vast majority of these women. Now, this is all due to several different reasons. A parent could be a widow or a widower. And even though it's not as common in the United States, many men in other countries take jobs in another country to work and provide for their family materially, and then they send money back. But in doing so, they're not able to take on the other duties that are essential for them being a parent. And still others, even more sadly, just have abandoned their duties and have no interest in fulfilling the responsibilities that they have to their children. But there are 6 very key things to keep in mind as a single parent. And this actually is very beneficial for all parents, but even more so for a single parent that's having to help fulfill both roles. The first of these is sound home management, proper planning, scheduling, organizing events, and things such as these so that the family life is more structured. Because as a single parent, you'll need far more structure because you won't be able to see everything. The second is commitment. Family and your spirituality need to be the top and first priority in your life. And you need to be able to set aside your own desires and wants and put your child's needs ahead of your own. The third is maintaining a balanced approach, neither minimizing nor exaggerating problems or issues that we may encounter. Instead, we need to ensure that we're focusing on solutions and avoiding diving into the depths of self-pity. The fourth is good communication, encouraging clear and open communication with our children. And we want to ensure that we're helping to foster opportunities to where we can have this clear line of communication. Perhaps over an evening meal that we have where all the family has to gather, not in front of a TV, where we're all forced to look and talk at each other. And hopefully we've banned cell phones from the table, so we can't do that either. And the fifth key thing that we can do is often one of the most overlooked, and that is caring for oneself. What that really involves is finding small escapes that we can de-stress as parents. For instance, if we have a child and they take music lessons, we can take that 1 hour a week or however often it occurs, and we can sit down, we can relax, we can even vent, cry, do whatever we need to do as a parent, because sometimes we need to. And this gives us that opportunity to reset emotionally so we don't become overly exhausted. Not only is this beneficial for us, but it's also beneficial for our child. Because with us being less exhausted, we're going to be able to have more patience in dealing with our children. And with having more patience, our children will be able to feel more love and affection from us. In fact, even if we are a single parent, we also wouldn't want to not let another brother or sister help us if we ever want to. For instance, if a brother invites to take a single parent's child out in service, this might give that parent a bit of time to be able to relax and de-stress and maybe be able to talk with other adults, things such as these. And it's actually helping the brother or sister that wants to help. It's giving them a gift of joy. So we would never want to feel as if we're a burden. The sixth, and this is probably the most important step, is a positive attitude. Remaining positive in stressful situations. We're going to encounter stressful situations each and every day. But these are merely opportunities for us to really show our love and dedication to Jehovah God. But once we understand our roles and what's all involved and how to care for our child, when do we actually start training our child? When do we start putting all that knowledge of what we're supposed to do into action? Well, we actually need to start doing that right away. And that's brought out for us at 2 Timothy 3, verse 15. If you'd like to turn there, that's 2 Timothy 3 and verse 15. And here it brings out, and that from infancy you have known the holy writings, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith in Christ Jesus. So it brings out that from infancy, from the very, very start, that's when we have to actually put everything that we're supposed to do into action. We also have to keep in mind that each child is very different. In fact, if we have more than one child, what may have worked for our first child, and we may say, oh, my first one, he was so easy. So easy, I could just tell him to do something, and he knew that it was important, he would do it. Our second child may not be that easy. He may not just take that, oh, well, Dad said I need to do this, so I'm going to do it. And then if you have a third child, he might be like, what? So we have to ensure that we're able to adapt and change our approach to each and every child. Sometimes a child requires a little more attention. Sometimes they require a lot more attention, and being able to help them sit down and concentrate on what we're trying to train or teach them on. And as we're doing this, we want to ensure that we're helping our children to grow. We want to ensure that we're not being overly critical or negative towards their efforts, but instead, we want to give them encouragement. Really and truly, we want to appreciate any and all effort that they put into anything spiritual or that is going to help them with their moral values. For instance, if our children, they're like, Mom, Dad, I really want to comment. They write out a comment. Even if that comment does not answer the question in the paragraph at all, we would want to acknowledge how great it was that they wanted to do that. We may not let them comment with that comment, but that's a different story. But we would want to encourage them in that aspect, because that's going to make them want to reach out and keep doing things more and more. We also would want to avoid shying away from shy or hard or subjects that may make us shy. Like if our child asks us, well, Mom, Dad, so-and-so is dating so-and-so, and, I've heard they've had sex. What do I do with that? Well, we'd want to be able to be approachable enough, one, for them to actually come and tell us that this is what's going on. And two, we would want to be mature and responsible enough to sit down and actually have that conversation with them, and doing so plainly and tactfully. And I know that this is something that I heard a lot when I was growing up, and it was talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words. Well, when you're a parent, I don't think this is ever more true, because you can say what you want your child to do or what you desire your child to do, but if you're not doing it, it is not important to them. So you can't just say, Bryson, I want you to study your watchtower. And he may look at you and be like, your watchtower's not studied? And sometimes you gotta be like, well, I guess we're gonna study it together today, aren't we? But children notice each and every little thing that we do. So we constantly are on display, and we constantly have to set that good and positive example in each and everything we do. Because ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to inculcate in our children values and guidelines, protections that are going to be able to safeguard them in this wicked and morally aberrant world. I mean, when we turn on the news, when we read a newspaper, if we still read newspapers, we can tell in my time, in 30 years, we can look back and the world is completely different than it used to be. It doesn't even look like it's the same place. And it's only getting worse as time goes on. So truly, as parents, our training has to be at the highest level. Now, with this in mind, why is all this training and encouragement so important? Well, the Bible actually brings out this direction for children that's brought out in Proverbs 6:20 through 23. Let's turn there. That's Proverbs 6:20 through 23. And this is directed at our young ones. And it really gives them something to think about. Anytime mom or dad tell you that we need to, correct the course of what we're doing. And here it says, "Observe, my son, the commandment of your father, and do not forsake the instruction of your mother. Always bind them around your heart. Tie them about your neck. When you walk about, it will lead you. When you lie down, it will stand guard over you. And when you awaken, it will speak to you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is a light, and the reproofs of discipline are the way of life." I'm sure no parent here has ever been like, I just want to get onto my child today. No, we get onto our children because they may have made an error in judgment, and we want to correct their course so that they continue to develop in a positive way. So we would never want to hold back from giving discipline when it's warranted. In fact, if we do, it's actually not only hard on ourselves as parents, but it's actually very hard on our children. As parents, if our child is misbehaving and we're just like, I just don't feel like dealing with it today, we're not consistent, our child's just going to keep being unruly. They're just going to keep acting out. And then we're going to get more and more frustrated until eventually, we might blow things out of proportion. But how it affects the child is they may be like, well, last time it didn't matter, so I don't know why it would this time. I can run in the Kingdom Hall if I want. It's no biggie. But, if we're consistent and we set the expectation, children will fall within those boundaries. We can do this several different ways. One of the ways that we can do is we can get down on their level. We can maintain eye contact. We can ask them questions. We can make them reiterate what we've just told them to do. We can make sure that they have a clear understanding of what's expected of them. In fact, a useful example is to think of it as if you're at the park and your child's playing soccer, and maybe you have more than one kid, and your other two children are wanting to play on the jungle gym, and you're like, okay, well, you can play soccer over here, but do not go in the street. Well, why can't I go in the street, Dad? Because I said so. I know every person here has probably heard that from their parent at one point in time or another. Because I said so, and by golly, that better be good enough. But it just may not be. Because if a child wants to know why they've been given a direction, even though it may be inconvenient for us at the time, it might behoove us to do so. For instance, if he has asked us why he can't go on the road, you might tell him, well, son, if you kick your ball into the road and somebody's driving and they're on their cell phone like they're not supposed to be, they may not see you. You may be hit with that car. It may cost you your life. So instead, if you do kick your ball into the road, come and get me, and together we can go get the ball, or I can go get the ball by myself. And see, not only have you explained yourself and they have seen the severity of what not listening to you will do, but you've also made yourself approachable. You've said, come to me, let me help you. And that also helps set the pattern for the rest of their lives. Whenever we let our children come to us for help, they'll continue to come to us for help, and they'll never just shy away and, start to drift off. But in doing all these different things, we want to ensure that first and foremost, anytime we're disciplining or correcting our child, steering them back to the straight and narrow, that we're following examples set for us as parents by Jehovah God. And we actually can read that example in just a couple pages back, if you've kept your place, at Proverbs 3 and verse 12. And that's Proverbs 3 and 12. And here it states, "For those whom Jehovah loves, he reproves, just as a father does a son in whom he delights." And we do. We delight in our children. We dote on them. We talk good about our kids to other people. I know that I show my kids off when they've done something funny on my phone all the time. Everything. It's because we love our children. They are truly just a wonderful and precious gift. So, what exactly are our responsibilities as parents? Well, from the time that they're conceived to the time they're born, during that whole process, we're making sure that we're preparing for them to be here. We're gathering supplies. We're taking care of ourselves health-wise so that we can be there to help our children. We're helping to understand our roles as parents for once they're there. We're starting to look at ourselves and see maybe what we could work on. Maybe we could use a little more patience. Maybe we could use a little more tact. We're thinking about scenarios in which we can help to be the most benefit to our children. We are starting to train them as early as possible from infancy to help them see the importance of living a morally upright life. And when our children do fall short, we correct them and redirect them in a way of love, as set forth for us by Jehovah God. Because if we do all these things, parents who are diligent in caring for these precious, precious gifts from God will reap rich rewards and will be proud of their children and the people they become.